Hello everyone, welcome to Thank Dog We Made It. Today we are going to go through, this is part 2 to what I did last week. So last week I showed you a number of different patterns, hacks to my cozy coat pattern. And this idea was to get you thinking sort of in the festive mode for things that you might change on the cozy coat pattern to make it a little bit more festive, but still functional. If you know me at all, you know that I'm all about function, and I don't really like to dress up dogs just for the purpose of dressing them up. But I really think that it's totally possible to dress up your dog and make them look fashionable or festive or whatever it is you want to do, but still make it functional. And so what I want to do today is look at the cozy coat pattern, following up on what I talked about last week, choosing some fabric, and also customizing the pattern. So I'm going to be doing this over a few weeks, and today what I'm going to do is look at the cozy coat pattern and how I want to customize that so that it fits the festive jacket that I want to make. So I'm going to make a jacket that is, I'm not going to show you the fabric yet. I'll show it to you when we're on the overhead camera. But I'm going to make a coat that's got some red for the body, and I'm going to use a water-resistant PUL, a polyurethane laminate, for the body of the coat. And then I'm going to use some upcycled. I've got an old woolen skirt. It's pure wool. And I'm going to use that for the skirt portion and for the hat portion. So I'm going to take that cozy coat and I'm going to customize it so that I can add a skirt, I'm going to add a belt, and I'm going to add a hat. So today, this is going to be a quickie. I just want to show you how I'm going to customize that pattern so that it fits the coat. So first thing I will do is flip over to my overhead camera. And what I'm going to show you today is this is my cozy coat pattern. I can't get it all into the camera at once, but you get a general idea of what it looks like. So what I've got, normally what comes on the cozy coat pattern is the body, and this will come in a PDF format. Now, just in case you haven't watched one of my videos before, or you're not sure, you can get a free copy of this medium-sized pattern. And it comes, what it's called is the Cozy Coat Pattern Package. And the full package includes the PDF download that you can print and paste up together like I've done this. It includes the collar, of course. And it also includes links to videos and a workbook. So the workbook allows you to, teaches you and walks you through measuring your dog so you know exactly what your dog's shape is. And then you can also, in your workbook, write down all of the measurements that you've got. And then the videos that it links to walks you through. The videos will show you how to measure your dog. Also shows you how to customize the pattern so that it fits your dog. So you might have a dog that doesn't fit this pattern exactly. Maybe they've got a longer back or they've got a shorter torso. So the videos will show you how to customize the pattern so that it does fit your dog. And also some other ideas about fabrics that you can use, all sorts of things in that package. So there is a link down below where you can download that free package so that you can work along with me on this. So this, as I said, this is the basic pattern that we get in the cozy coat pattern. Once it's all pasted together, this is what it'll look like. So today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be changing the back end to this coat, and I'm going to cut off this part and I'm going to add a skirt instead. So this coat also, that also allows you, at this point, you can change the length of that. So if you had a dog that had a much longer length, you can cut this and add the skirt to it and extend that out much longer than you wanted to, or vice versa. You could shorten it up. If you had a dog with a really short back, you can also shorten it up. What I would typically suggest that you do is you cut, when you're going to cut the fabric, or cut your pattern to extend it into the skirt area, There is a cut line on here, and this tells you where you can safely cut safely cut the pattern in order to customize it in a traditional way. But because we're going to be actually extending this out with a skirt, I'm actually suggesting that you cut it just in behind where this wrap is. This is the wrap, this portion here wraps around the dog's belly. So I'm suggesting that you actually cut it right about here so that you're finished with this curve for where the belly wrap happens, and then this whole section here, from here over, will be the skirt area. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to do is we're going to, instead of having a collar, this is your collar pattern part, instead of having the collar portion, we're going to do a hat. So this is the template. This is the basic template for the hat. Let's get that into the camera. There we go. This is the template for the hat, and it is set for a medium-sized hat. If you have a dog coat that is bigger, let's say you're not actually working with my cozy coat pattern, or you've got a bigger pattern, that's no problems. You can actually extend the size of this, and I will put the formula, I won't go into it right now, but there's a formula that will allow you to print out this template so that it fits different sizes. So if you wanted to shrink it down, you can do that, or you can shrink it up. I mean, not shrink it up, size it up. So I'll put the formula down below, but this will give you an idea. This one fits perfectly with the medium, and the way that you know that it fits perfectly is you're going to measure the same area that is for the coat collar. So this section here, if I measure that, it comes to 6 1/4 inches. And if I measure just this gray area, not the outside seam allowance, but just the gray area, if I measure that, it's 6 1/4 as well. So this one will fit perfectly. If I bring this guy back into the camera here, this hat will actually fit perfectly around this area here. And it will still leave some area for the fold over, where this is where the Velcro sits and it wraps over each other. So it's going to leave that area without hat on it. So this hat is perfectly sized for this, but as I said, if you were making a different size pattern, you could certainly make one that is larger, and I'll put the formula for that down below. So this is, I just printed out this collar just to give you an example of how you can size it differently. So this is the collar for a large size cozy coat, and as you can see, it's 8 inches across here. So using the formula that I will put down below, you can print out this template so that using the scale, like the percentage scale feature on your printer, you can actually print this out so that it fits the right size. And this one I printed out, looks like I printed out just slightly shy, but essentially the idea is that that will print out to the size that you need for your 8-inch collar, just to replace that collar. So that is the hat. We talked about how I'm going to change this for the skirt. So let's go ahead and start doing this. The first thing, as I said, I want to do is I want to cut this pattern in behind this curve. So you're going to check to where that curve ends on the pattern. If you are using a different pattern, you just want to make sure that you're cutting your pattern at a point where it's past the belly section or any curves. You want to try to find an area that's flat. And as I said, my pattern here has a cut feature. It's got a line on it and some scissors that indicate that you can cut the pattern here. And very often on other patterns, you'll find the same thing. You'll find a line with some scissors or another icon that shows you where you can cut the pattern. But essentially, all you're looking for is some place that's flat, or as flat as possible, that doesn't have a curve in it. So if you're not working with my cozy coat pattern, just try to find an area that you can cut that's not in the curve. So I'm just going to get slightly past that curve there, which is essentially right here, and I'm going to cut straight down to cut that section off. Oops, I'm cutting on the wrong thing. That's why it feels a bit weird. Let's bring back my cutting board here. Right. There we go. Okay. So I've got my body. I'm going to keep that section and I'm going to put this section aside. I don't need this anymore. I will refer to that perhaps later, but not at the moment. The next thing we want to do is create a skirt. So what I would do is I would take a measurement of my dog's back, the full measurement from the collar to where the tail is on the dog. The full measurement of the entire back is 13.5. But let's say I want to customize this just so it's a little longer. So I would, let's say I'm going to add an extra 2 inches to this because I've got a dog with a longer back. So instead of 5.25 inches for this back section, I'm going to make it 7.25. So I will take a piece of spare paper and make it 7.25. Where's my pen? I'm going to make that 7.25 inches, and I want to leave a little bit of room. I usually do 3/8 of an inch for a seam allowance. So I'm going to leave myself a little bit of extra room there for a seam allowance. And then I'm going to do 7.25. So I'll just slide that over. 7.25. Since I've got an inch there, I'm going to make it 8.25. And then I'm going to add another 3/8 inch for my seam allowance. The next thing I want to do is I want to measure. So we're working on the skirt here. I'm going to measure this section from the top, which is where the back, this is where the fold is. So this is what's going across the spine. I'm going to measure there down to where the body ended. It's probably going to be a little easier to measure on this because you can see it a little better. So if I measure that, that comes down to 7 inches. So this is where our skirt ruffle is going to be. So if I'm just going to write down a note here. So we've got 7 inches is our regular width of that coat. But since we're going to be adding a skirt, we're going to do 3 times that amount. So what I was suggesting last week, if you watched the video last week, is that you're going to do, if you're adding a skirt, you can add it just a straight skirt, but you probably want to have just a little bit of a ruffle to it. So you're going to add a little extra fabric here. So I would recommend anywhere between 1.5 times your length, your width here, 1.5 all the way up to 3 times as long as this. And 3 times is going to give you a really ruffly skirt. 1.5 times is just going to give you a slight little wave to the skirt. So I'm going to do this at 3 times because I want to have it a really nice wide kind of ruffly skirt on this. So if I do that times 3, then I'm going to add 21 inches. So I'm not going to be able to do 21 inches on this piece of paper, and I don't think we really need to even show you that. So this is the back length. That is the amount of area that we've got from just to extend the skirt to the right length. So I'll just do a little dotted line for my seam allowance there. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll do a little, give myself a little line, 7.25, and another 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch for my seam allowance. And I'm just going to join up those lines and then have a dotted line here for my seam allowance. So that is how long it's going to be. That's the extent from here to the end of the coat. But the width, which is this section here, this is the part that ruffles. So I'm not going to show you the 21 inches that we just measured here. But you would take this piece of paper and you would measure that across the full length of your fabric to get the 21 inches. So I'll just quickly show you my beautiful fabric I have here. This is a lovely woolen skirt, and it's got these beautiful pleats in it, and it came with this great, it's like a Highland plaid. It's got this great safety pin, it's got some great belt features. So I'm going to actually try to incorporate these into my coat. But let's just do a really quick exercise here of how I would measure that fabric. So if you're lucky, or not, whatever, but if you want to try to use the fabric ending, you could probably just go ahead and use the hem that's already on the fabric. It doesn't have a hem, you're going to just add a little bit of an extra edge to it so you can create your own hem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 21 inches across. Just measure right on the hem so I can get a nice straight line here. So 21 inches, and then I'm going to give myself, this one already has a nice seam on this side, so I don't need to worry about the hem on the right side. So I would do 21 inches. Do the same thing here. I'm just going to measure across. So I'm going to measure across, get my 21 inches. So we'll do it to there. No. You can actually follow the pattern as well. As you can see the plaid pattern, you could probably follow along with that. So if I stretch this fabric out and make sure it's lying flat, try to keep it inside the camera. This is my line here. So I'm just going to follow that down along there, and I'm going to create a line here to cut. Or not cut, but that's where my seam is. All right, so that would be the width, and then this, I want to measure the depth. So remember, where's our piece here? This section here is 7 1/4 inches long. Just trying to find my pen to write. There we go. So this section, this is our back length, and it's 7.25 inches long. So we're going to do that same measurement here. And again, I've got a hem, so I don't need to add a seam allowance. If you don't have a hem, you can add an extra seam allowance. And I'm going to do 7 1/4, which happens to be right on that yellow line of the plaid. I'll do the same thing over here. Measure 7 1/4, which is again on that yellow line of the plaid. And I'll do the same thing over here on my lines that I drew. And just again, it's right on that yellow line of the plaid. So I would cut that piece out. Now I'm not going to do this right now. So what we're doing is we are taking a piece of fabric that's going to replace this piece right here. And as you can see, the difference between this, which is what a normal width of the fabric would be, now it's going to be this. It's going to be all the way from here. Can't show you all together because of the camera, but it's essentially all the way from here, and once it ruffles together, you gather this all together and bring my coat back with the width that it's going to attach to. You can start to get an idea of how that's going to look when it's on the coat. Now, one thing I want to add that I didn't exactly explain while I was videoing this, but you are actually creating, when you're cutting this fabric, because this pattern is on the fold, you're actually going to be doing twice the amount of this fabric. So when I was saying that I would cut along here, in fact you wouldn't. This is going to be where your fold is, and you would fold that back and then do the exact piece here. So I'm just showing you on camera the half of what that looks like because it's too much to show you all on camera, but this is what the full piece would be if I cut that here if I folded it where the fold is on the line, this is where I would be cutting it off. So that gives you an idea of how much this full skirt would be when I start to cinch that up to fit to the size of the width of the coat. Let's see if I can get that a little better on the camera. There we go. The other thing that I would do to do this is that I would add a little bit of a belt to transition between those two pieces for the skirt part that's going to go here and the coat, the body part. And the reason that I would do this is that because what it's going to do is it's going to cover up the seam here, and it gives it a really nice transition between the two, and it also smooths it out so that there's no rough edges of the fabric that are rubbing up against your dog. So I would add a belt here, and in order to create the belt I would just take some scrap paper, and my belt, let's say I want to have a transition that's about between these two. I would suggest that I would want to have a belt that's probably about 1.5 inches wide. That would give a nice transition between the two. So I would do a belt that is 1.5 inches wide plus 3/8 of an inch on either side for my seam allowance. So 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch for the seam allowance. Slide that over. Get 1.5 inches for the width of the belt, and then another 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch for the seam allowance on that side. Do the same thing here. Just do it this way. So 1, 2, 3 inches, 3/8 of an inch for my seam allowance, 1.5 inches for my belt, 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch for my seam allowance again. Then I would draw lines to just to create my seam allowance here. You can make a belt at any width that you want. If you want a really nice fat belt, you could do that. You could also, if you wanted, you could actually use a leather belt. If you have an old leather belt or something like that, you could certainly do that as well. So I'm going to just cut that off so that we've got just the nice belt piece itself. And then I want to make sure that this is the same height as, you know, the same depth as this coat fabric is here. So I'm just going to do a quick measurement and do a line to join up where that section is here. Make sure I'm on camera. So it's going to make a line to there. And also want to make sure that this is clear, that this is on the fold. So this would be double this. So you'd fold your fabric in order to get this. And then I would, so we know that that's 7 inches. I'll do the 7 inches here as well. And then I'm going to just add myself another seam allowance, 3/8 of an inch. You can add whatever seam allowance you like. I always like to have a 3/8 inch seam allowance, but whatever you're accustomed to will work. So just draw a line there, and then I'm just going to cut that off. Even though I'm cutting on my wrong thing. All right, so that is my belt. So that's going to sit in between the transition between the two, and it would overlap this section and the fabric section of my skirt. So this, let's just pretend this is my ruffled skirt section and that I've sewn these two parts together. This belt will just transition between those two areas and allow for a nice simple transition in between those two areas. The last thing that we've already talked about, I'm not going to go about showing you the fabric, but you've got your hat, and once you've figured out the size of the hat and make sure that it matches the measurement of your coat, then you would cut your fabric out. So I'm going to actually use this same fabric that I just showed you for the hat. And just to give you a show and tell here of what I'm going to do next week, this is the fabric that I'm going to be using for the main body of the coat for this section here. So this is all going to be done in this really nice red. So this is some fabric that I picked up. It's dead stock that came from a place here in Vancouver called Our Social Fabric. And they get fabric from donated to them from manufacturing houses that create outdoor wear. Sometimes they get stuff from movie sets. They get all sorts of amazing different fabrics donated, and they package it up and resell it. And this is a great fabric. It is a PLU style fabric, and it's got this, I don't know if you can see it very well. If I bring this even closer, this is a waterproof layer in the fabric. And then what they've also done is added this second layer over top of it that is actually, it's reflective, and it's super wonderful to sew with. It just glides through the feet on your sewing machine. So this is one of my favorite fabrics. And this is one that I picked up as a dead stock. So it was really inexpensive. And the great thing about dead stock is that you're saving it from the landfill. Instead of those manufacturing houses throwing out old pieces of fabric that are too small for them to work with, or sometimes it's a color that's gone out of the season, it's not their seasonal color anymore. They used to just throw these pieces out. They would all go into the landfill. Now it's going into places like Our Social Fabric. There are several places that sell dead stock now, so it's a great place for you to source your fabrics, and it's really a great environmental and sustainable way of making weather resistant, water resistant coats that are still working with the environment. So this is a great color for the body, and it matches really nicely with my beautiful wool tartan skirt that I found that I'm going to upcycle. So next week, I'm just going to transition back to the camera here. So next week I'm going to go through the whole process of cutting up the fabric and actually starting to sew the coat. So I'm really excited. This is going to be a several week long series of videos that I'm going to do that will show how I'm putting this coat together. And I've got some really cool fur, so I might experiment with some ideas around adding maybe a little bit of fur trim around the hat, maybe a little fur trim around the belt. Maybe I'll do a fur belt. It's not real fur, it's faux fur, but I thought that might be kind of fun too. So I'm playing around with that idea, still kind of in the experimentation mode. And that's the great thing about making festive wear or any kind of a customization. When you're hacking a pattern like what I'm doing here, you got lots of exciting ideas that you can do. And as I said, there's these great features on this on the coat, or sorry, not the coat, but the skirt. It's got these really great little buckles on it. It's got the I don't know if I've got it here. Not sure what happened to that safety pin. Oh, there it is. There's the safety pin. So I think this would be really cool little features to add on to the coat. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet. Maybe around the collar area might be fun to do, like around where it wraps. I'm not sure. We'll play with that. One thing I just wanted to cover over here before I finish up is, not sure if you can read that. Anyways, there we go. I think that is visible. That is the symbol on the coat that shows that it is wool. So if you are searching for upcycling and you want to use something that's going to be weather resistant, wool has a natural weather resistance to it. So it's a great fabric to work with because water doesn't naturally go through it very easily. It will go through at some point. It's not waterproof by any stretch, but it is weather resistant. So the water doesn't go through right away, and it's warm, but it's not too warm. And the way that this will work, because it's going to be added to the skirt area as opposed to the chest area, it's not going to be adding a whole lot of extra layers of warmth to the coat, which works really well for my dog because she is a porty doodle. And a couple of live videos ago, I did a whole thing on sustainable fabrics and how to choose the fabrics based on your dog breed. So if you haven't found that, if you haven't checked that out yet, check it out, because what I do is I talk about all the different breeds and what kind of dog, well, what kind of coverage they need, because different breeds have different needs when it comes to coats. And it's really important when you're making a coat for your dog that you want to make sure that they're comfortable. You don't want to overheat them, but you also want to make sure that they're warm, and so you want to get the right fabric combination that works for your dog. So make sure that you check that out. I'll put the link down below to that if you are interested, so that you can figure out what's the best fabric to work with for your dog that you're making your coat for. With Scout, she has a moderate need for warmth. She doesn't need a lot of warmth, but she also, like a short-haired dog, like a boxer or a whippet, they have very short hair, sometimes no hair if we're talking about like a Mexican hairless. Those dogs need a really good warm coverage for their fur. They really can benefit from some kind of a warm coat. But if you're talking about a dog that is, like, say, a Labrador Retriever or a husky, I mean, they have big, thick fur. It's actually double coated. They've got a lot of natural oils in their fur. They don't need a lot of warmth. But a lot of the times we still want to keep them dry, because you don't want to be bringing all that mud back in, and you just want to keep them dry. It's easier when you get them home. So they benefit from something that's just a very nice light shell, but I wouldn't even put in a liner, or if I did put a liner in, I would do something really simple. So for Scout, because she's got a moderate need, I'm going to be doing the wool for the skirt. I'm going to be doing this red PUL for the outer, for the body, for the shell, and I'll probably line it with something quite light and breathable. So the wool actually works as a light and breathable fabric, or I might do just a really simple cotton, a cotton liner of some sort, but she doesn't need a really warm one. For some kind of a dog that is that has a need for warmth, I would be going more to a fleece for the inside for the liner. And for a dog like a husky that has that double coat, I probably wouldn't put a liner in, or if I did, I would put something in that's really like a cotton mesh or something very, very, or hemp, something just really light. But that is, as I said, there's a whole video on that, so I won't go into any more details on that, but I'm really excited about making this coat for Scout so that she has something festive to wear. And the nice thing about this is that it's going to be functional. So these are both, as I said, the PUL and the wool, these are both weather resistant fabrics, and it's going to be really pretty, and she's going to be really dressed up, but it's also a functional coat because she can wear it out in the weather, in the rain, in the snow, and she's going to be warm and she's going to be dry. All right, well, that's it for this week. If you have any questions, by any means, fire them off. The Cozy Coat pattern that I worked with today is linked down below. It's a free download for you, and it's a full package. It's got the workbook that I talked about and links to several videos that help you step by step how to make that coat. So if you're just starting out, it's a great place to start. But even if you just want to go along and hack this coat with me, just download the pattern itself and start hacking away. I think that's all that I want to cover. I was thinking there was something else, but I think that's it. So meet me next week if you're interested in following along on this. I meet here every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific. So join me next Thursday and we'll start diving into actually getting that fabric and starting to sew the coat. Let's just flip over to the other screen before I go. And I just want to make sure that there's no chats or questions from anyone. It doesn't look like there are any questions, so I'm just going to leave it as that is for now. But I always love to hear questions from you. If anyone has any questions at any time, let's say you're watching this video later on, by all means, send your questions in to me and I'd be happy to respond to those. I do have a question from one woman who sent in a message asking about how to customize a pattern to fit in her her dog that has a lot of pinching underneath the arms. So I'm going to work on that question and I will get back to that idea. But for now, if you have any questions on this particular video, just comment down below, Or I will put my email in there too. If you'd rather send me a direct email, I'd be happy to respond to that as well. All right, have a great week, and we will see you next week. All right, bye-bye.